one guy that people have been excited about the past couple of days that felt like a no-brainer for us to discuss, Ahkeem Mesidor, the other pass rusher from Miami. He is starting to make the rounds. One of the things I always like about the draft process, Ryan, is when someone prominent, maybe that isn't draft centric, will watch a player and they'll post their film. And then so everybody starts watching him and everybody starts talking about him. And I always love it when that happens with a prospect that I also really liked when I broke his tape down. Ahkeem Mesidor is one of those dudes. Ahkeem Mesidor seems to be getting potentially some late first round buzz. Might be a little too rich for me, but in a class where a lot of day 2 prospects are probably going to get propped up because of their work ethic, because of their character, because of the efforts that they've put in to progress. I think that is absolutely going to come to fruition. And Mesidor feels like one of those players that it could end up coming down to because, Ryan, you've got these pass rushers that have physical outlier traits. Romello Heights really underweight. You have Cassius Howell with short arms. You have R. Mason Thomas with kind of like a blank half of a year because he was banged up, and there's been questions about his physical profile.
Right.
I get that Mesidor is 25, I believe is his age.
He'll be a 25-year-old rookie. Yep.
I like his hands. I think that he's a technician. If you're drafting a kid because you think that you feel pretty confident that he can step in and you're trying to compete and you just want someone who's ready to go, I'm fine with it. Where do you stand on Ahkeem Mesidor?
I love the layers to this conversation because in a vacuum, would I want to draft Ahkeem Mesidor in the late first round? Typically, not really. But in this class that lacks depth, like late first round depth, especially that kicks back up in the second round, I am okay with him being a late first round pick because I do think, Joe, that when we talk about the floor versus ceiling conversations, typically I like going for the ceiling of edge rushers because I do think that is a position that is built off of traits typically. But there are going to be some teams in the late 20s, early 30s that are potentially one or two pieces away from winning a championship in 2026. Like they're close, right? And I do think that Mesidor brings a NFL-ready pass rush profile that even if he doesn't end up being a 12-sack-a-year guy, if he's an 8-sack-a-year guy as a secondary rusher, that can help you get over the top, potentially, right? Like he can be that type of player. So I do think, and I do believe that as long as the medicals check out, which are a little bit hairy, but if he checks out medically, I do think that he will find his way into the first round, and I understand why he will because he's the type of guy that, again, comes in and as a rookie has like 6 to 8 sacks as a secondary rusher, and you're like, okay, he's not elite, he's not stellar necessarily, but he's efficient, and that efficiency can help take us to a championship. So I'm okay with it. The long and short of it is that I am okay with him being a late first round pick in this year's draft because I do think that a team that is aspiring for a championship can get a lot of use out of Mesidor in year one.
Right, that's like the biggest part with me is that there is a large grouping of teams in the back end of the first round that I forget if we said it. I think we said it on the mock draft that we did. It gets really hard with some of these rosters where you don't really know who they're supposed to go with because they've got really well-rounded rosters. Mesidor is the type of guy that if you're trying to make that leap and you're trying to be competitive and you're trying to just boost a position group that needs some depth and an eventual maybe immediate solid impact starter from a rookie, Mesidor is exactly that. He is older. And it's the best case of older because sometimes we have older prospects that are super raw. So it's kind of a oxymoron of you've been playing so much ball, but you didn't really get where you were supposed to go. Mesidor is exactly the definition of it where he's detailed. He's really, really detailed in how he uses his hands. That was the thing that I loved about his tape where I was like, man, his hands, the way that he's able to tactfully impact an opposing offensive lineman to win reps. There's a reason why his production ramped up through the course of the year. And if I recall correctly, during a lot of the national championship coverage, they were talking about how he and Bain really locked in and refined their pass rush technique. So I love the idea of potentially Mesidor going where he could go. And he's a pretty good like a solid athlete. Is he as twitchy as a TJ Parker, who'll be in the same conversation, or a Cassius Howell? He's a good enough of an athlete that I can make the case of the hands make up for it, and I just need him to be ready to go right now.
Well, and I think in the first round too, you're ideally going to partner him with a number one rusher that's already pre-existing? Because I feel like we saw that at Miami this past year, right? Is that we knew where the attention was going. It was going to number 4. Like, teams were worried much more about Ruben Bain than they were about Ahkeem Mesidor. Not that Ahkeem wasn't a good player, obviously, but I think that Ahkeem got a lot of one-on-one opportunities because of the presence that Ruben Bain had for that Miami defensive line. I would also say this, Joe. We always think of like Ruben Bain as that guy that moves inside and rushes from the interior at times, which he did at Miami. But Ahkeem did a lot of that too, man, this past year, where like he was going one-on-one with guards in like some very obvious passing situations. He had that rep, obviously, against Notre Dame where he was able to beat right guard Gerby Lambert very quick off the snap. So he had those reps. So I do think that he's a versatile guy to a degree as well from a rush perspective. So again, if that's a team, a team in a good spot that says this is one of the last missing pieces, go for it. I think in this class, it makes a whole lot of sense there in the latter stages of the first rounds.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was our first week of like really digging in. We're going to be going 3 times a week as often as we can leading up to the NFL draft. Whatever we do in the offseason, that is to be determined. But thank you, everybody who's been tapping in. Make sure you're subscribed because we're going to have a lot more of these prospect debates and discussions. We're not going to just give you the cookie cutter draft coverage that I think a lot of other shows do. We're going to try and get into some nitty gritty talking points and actually provide 2 sides of an argument. So make sure that you're not missing out as we're going to provide you as much unique coverage as possible. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. We'll talk to you later.